All right, when the channel needs tactical on-the-ground weapons expertise, we turn to our friend Jack Murphy, former Army Ranger and sniper. Jack, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ward.
So let's start by just showing the event from just before the shots ring out until former President Trump is ushered into the hard car.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move. Go.
Up. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare.
Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready.
You ready?
Shoot down. Shoot it down.
Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move?
Shooter's down. We're good to move.
Clear.
We're
Let's
clear.
move.
We're
Let's
clear.
move.
We're clear.
Come on.
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head, it's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay. My shoe down. My shoe.
Watch out.
Wait.
It's chaos. Just look at how the focus of traditional TV and print sources has changed over the last few months. From felony convictions to a terrible debate performance to an assassination attempt, just when you think you understand what's in play, the situation completely changes. I'm sure you, like me, are frustrated with how wrong the media can be at times. So let me recommend something that I use to get it right while creating current events episodes: Ground News. So let's take a look at the latest around the topic of Project 2025, something that my good friend Brian McGrath and I discussed in a recent episode. Ground News aggregates the articles on the topic, in this case there are 101 of them, and gives you a breakdown of the political bias, which is based on ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. How factual they are, also based on ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations, and this is important, who owns each publication. You can't get this kind of detailed breakdown at a glance anywhere else. Go to ground.news/Ward Carroll to stay fully informed. Subscribe through my link and get 40% off unlimited access, which is the Vantage plan that I use. The link is in the episode description, so check it out. So this rally was organized, obviously, months ago. The advance team started to set it up on July 10th. And ironically, Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly recommended to the Trump campaign staff that they hold the rally at a location that could handle a bigger crowd. But the campaign told them they'd already made up their minds to use the Butler Farm Show grounds. There were 4 separate counter sniper teams that were assigned to the event, 2 from the Secret Service and 2 from local law enforcement. And Jack, I don't know if that means Pennsylvania State Troopers or
Right.
Butler Township Police, but it just indicates local law enforcement. Pennsylvania State Police were also involved in security. Butler Township Police were given traffic duties and other more routine assignments around the event. The FBI had no info about any particular threats going into this rally. Now, there have been some criticisms about the amount of security detail assigned to former President Trump, but the Secret Service had actually claimed to have increased Trump's security detail in the weeks prior, because of some intel that indicated that Iran was plotting to assassinate the former president. The shooter has been identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Crooks was a recent graduate of the Community College of Allegheny County, and he worked in the kitchen of a local nursing home. High school classmates describe him as quiet and noted that he was teased by some other students for wearing camouflage to class every day, for what that's worth. He was a registered Republican who also made at least one small donation, $15 is what I'm hearing, to a Democratic cause, the Voter Turnout Project. He was also a member of a shooting club that has a 200-yard rifle range. Now, the day of the shooting, he used his father's rifle, which is a DPMS Panther Arms AR-15 style rifle with a 16-inch barrel that uses 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO rounds. The day prior, he purchased 50 rounds of that ammo at a local gun store. He also bought a 5-foot ladder on his way to the site. And after the fact, the FBI found an explosive device in the trunk of his car. Crooks was identified by Butler police on site as a suspicious person at the entry point a half hour before the shooting. He was also spotted by another local officer, quote, scoping out the roof, end quote, while carrying a rangefinder. Bystanders outside of the event perimeter near the roof where Crooks was positioned spotted him and tried to alert Butler Township police. Here's what one of them, ID'd only as Greg, told the BBC.
So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
In addition to Greg's witness testimony, other details include a Butler Township police officer attempted to hoist another police officer onto the roof after they were alerted by the bystanders. And as he crested the roof line, Crooks saw him, and by the police officer's testimony, he said Crooks turned the rifle towards him. And so he ducked, and in the process, he lost his grip on the roof and fell about 8 feet to the ground. And at that point, Crooks immediately started opening fire on the dais and former President Trump. One shot grazed former President Trump's right ear. 3 other rally goers were hit in the stands. Corey Comparator, a volunteer firefighter, was hit in the head while attempting to shield his family and died instantly. James Copenhaver and David Dutch were critically injured but released from the hospital the next day in stable condition. Okay, so Jack, let's do a sort of coach's clicker breakdown of what we see as this event happens.
And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, so you hear the first 2 shots. He grabs his ear. Among the things that have been attributed to saving former President Trump's life was the fact he was referencing that chart on the Jumbotron. And so he wasn't facing the crowd where he would have given a square side of his head look to the shooter. He was looking over towards him.
And there's some debate I've heard about, was he shot with a bullet or did a bullet hit a teleprompter and a piece of glass hit him in the ear? And I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, when you watch that footage right there, you can see him clearly flinch. It was either the first or the second shot when he was hit.
I think if the bullet had hit a teleprompter,
you would have seen the shards.
Yeah. That wouldn't have been a subtle thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so a total of 8 shots fired. Secret Service immediately on top of him.
Yeah, and so the shooter continues to fire. So the Secret Service does the right thing. Trump is obviously starting to, seek some cover, but that shooter is so amped up that he keeps letting off rounds after his target is no longer presenting itself and fires right into that crowd and kills one and injures a few others.
The bystanders who were injured and in one case killed were located, as we're looking at the stage, to the smaller bleachers to the left. So if you look at the orientation of everything, you have the main bleachers behind the dais and the podium that are the taller ones. And then there's these smaller bleachers on either side. And so the victims of the shooting were in the bleachers that are closer to where the shooter was on top of the building.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess makes sense.
My first guess was that they were behind the line of fire.
But they were in front.
They were in front.
He may have been trying to readjust his aim to fire downwards because now Trump is down on the stage, and maybe that's why those people came into his sight picture.
Okay, so you hear that report.
Yep.
That's the tenor of it is different than what we were hearing from the AR-15. My guess, Jack, is what we heard just there is the single shot from the sniper that took out the shooter.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the case. That weapon that was fired was probably a 300 Win Mag. So, I mean, you're going to hear that. That's going to pop up on the audio.
And as you hear that shot, you hear a woman scream loudly.
Yeah.
So in the confusion, she probably assumed that was more shooting from the assailant.
So they got him down, and I don't know what the Secret Service's tactics, techniques, and procedures are. Like, is the protocol to form a human shield on the stage, or is it to usher him off the stage as quickly as possible? So to be honest, I'm not in a position to really critique and say, did they do this right or did they do it wrong? But in this case, they clearly jumped on top of him, forming a human shield. And I think we'll see in just a minute, it looks like the counter assault team guys get up on stage. The guys who are camoed up with long guns.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Move. Go.
Yeah, they're trying to move him, but they're having some trouble. Now is that because Trump was they had a hard time getting him on his feet, or is that because they themselves were dragging their feet? And again, I'm not totally able to say.
Okay, so
they got the call.
You heard the order previous to this. The guy says, "Move, on you." And then there's the hesitation.
Yeah.
And then you hear the shooter is down. And at that point, I don't know if that's the operative statement to actually start moving him.
Right.
So we don't know how many shooters there are at this point. And so they're exercising an abundance of caution. Like you, I don't know what the procedure is specifically. My first impulse, again, having seen how swiftly previous assassination attempts got the president or whomever into the hard car. I'm thinking particularly of the Hinckley-Reagan assassination attempt, where it's just this one fluid motion with the first shot where they get him into the car. This is a different circumstance, no doubt, but it takes them a while, and it continues to take them a while.
Yep.
Let's move. Lots of comms back and forth, lots of directive comms.
Let me get my shoes.
Okay. Former President Trump says, "Let me get my shoes," as they're bringing him to his feet.
So his shoes must have came off when he ducked down, or when the Secret Service tackled him to the ground, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said when they tackled him that his shoes they knocked his shoes off. You can also notice that one of the SWAT guys moves from sort of where the shots came from, and now he's moved to the other side of the dais near the stairway there.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold on, your head is bloody.
So we got to move to the car.
Okay, so he says, "I got you, sir." He goes, "Let me get my shoes. We need to move you to the car." The podium is obviously in the way here.
Watch out.
Like, wait. So he does this defiant gesture. Pretty kick-ass, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't let it slow him down. You got to give him that.
Yeah. The crowd is definitely reacting, very emotional. And you can see they're shielding him. Again, the movement towards the hard car is not as fast as I've seen previously. And again, he stands up one more time, fist pump, and he's in the car. 2 sniper teams on a north and south roof of these barns. So the video that we have shows the northern team. And so this is at the moment of the shot.
Mm-hmm.
You can see he's already sighting into something, Jackie.
Right.
He's got something, and so I don't know if he's getting word that, hey, there's a suspicious guy, so he and his partner seem to be sighting.
Yeah, they're both on glass looking at something.
Okay. He looks out and then the shot happens. He flinches and he deflects the barrel. So he's at that point not in a position to take the shot. This is not the team that took the shot. The team that took the shot was the southern team. Here's what they look like. So, Jack, the northern team has got ball caps, and you can see plainly on their plate carrier, Police Secret Service.
Yep.
Right. So ball caps. Again, what kind of rifle are they using?
This is I believe it's a 300 Win Mag that they're using.
What jumps out at me is how short the magazine is. So how many rounds do we think might be in that magazine?
Usually it's going to be a 5-round magazine, and that's what it looks like there in the picture.
Okay. What kind of bullets are in that rifle?
There are 300 Winchester Magnum rounds, which that's most likely what this is. I wasn't able to be 100% certain. But that's a big round that snipers use in the special operations community. It fires on a very flat trajectory. In this case, the ranges we're talking about are like no greater than 200 meters. So, I mean, that round would have came down on the shooter like a freight train.
And again, the guys who actually took the shot were these guys. So just note, these guys are wearing the floppy hats, not ball caps. Their camo is different. They don't have t-shirts on. They have, tactical shirts with long sleeves. I can't make out what is on the badge at that one guy's hip or any of their patches, but this could be a different outfit, one of the local, and by local, maybe state police, maybe Butler Township. I don't know if Butler Township has a counter sniper unit.
Yeah, I'd guess state level, the badge being shown. I don't think these are Secret Service guys.
When this picture was taken, they're looking to the south. So to note, the snipers are responsible for 360 degrees of coverage. So between these 2 sniper teams on the roofs of these barns, they have to sort of stay out of phase. And it reminds me of doing racetracks with another fighter on a cap station,
right,
where somebody needs to be looking the opposite direction at all times. And that's sort of an old school, especially when you don't have AWACS coverage. So in this case, obviously the one guy with the big eyes is looking south. The other guy's on, I don't know whether he's on a phone or on some sort of a radio, looking to the north. I'm
Yeah,
not
and
sure when the picture was
it
taken.
looks like he has a laser rangefinder in his hand.
Okay, that too. Good call. So just note that these guys appear to be from a different unit than the Secret Service. Probably the same weapon, the Win Mag there, Jack.
Yeah, most likely.
And the reason that we believe it was the Southern team is, as you look at this orientation here, again, look at the American flag, two barns, north and south. The Northern team's direct line of fire was obstructed by that westernmost tree. And so the shot had to be taken by the Southern CS team. The other thing that strikes me, Jack, is there are a lot of agents. And so I don't know if, again, you're saying we don't know the procedures, but maybe that's routine to just cover them always with bodies. But you can also see as they queue up to the stairway off of the stage, there's a bottleneck and he gets hung up there. Also, the fact that he wanted to make that gesture, again, kick ass, but if there had been other shooters, he was exposed at that moment. That slowed them down.
He wants to get his shoes on. He wants to make a statement. And again, I'm not going to blame the victim in this case, but I mean, those things may have slowed down them a little bit. Now, on the other hand, it's the Secret Service's job to protect their principal. So it doesn't matter if the guy wants to get his shoes or he wants to make a statement. Like, your job is to protect this guy. And if the procedure is to get him off the stage as quickly as possible, then, I mean, it's a presidential candidate in this case. I mean, if you have to manhandle the guy off the stage, I mean, they're going, right?
As a chain of events is happening, we used to ask ourselves, how would this read? Right? It's
Right.
like, let's do that flyby, or let's go fly over that lake where the boaters are. And then you go, how's this going to read? So to your point, had former President Trump been shot at the moment he raised his fist by a second shooter, the Secret Service would have been absolutely nailed for that. Right?
Of course.
So at some level, the person they're protecting doesn't get a vote for how rapidly, including we'll get your shoes to you later, and no signs of defiance under fire. Again, fully admitting that the optics of that were pretty amazing in terms of his defiance and the fist pumps and the USA chants. It just seems to take a long time from when they first gang tackle him until they get him into the hard car. And we'll see what the after action report yields with respect to that. The other thing to note is the Director of Homeland Security has asked for an independent review. So certainly all agencies involved will do their own internal review, but the overall review is going to be done by a third party, apparently, which is probably pretty smart. So analyzing some of the other tactical gear that's used by the units involved here, Jack, these guys, the one guy's the guy we see going on the stage back and forth, dressed in black.
The guys who are dressed in black and they're wearing those patches, they look like they're outfitted more similarly to that counter sniper team to the south that fired the shot. So I'm guessing they're the state SWAT team guys. And the dude in the background in the multicam is probably part of like the Secret Service counter assault team.
It looks like they're carrying either M16s or M4s.
Yeah, there's some AR-15 variant for sure.
Okay, and it looks like they have flash suppressors on the barrels.
Flash suppressors, tack lights. The guy in multicam has looks like it's a PEC 4 laser sight on there.
And then that same guy here, he is at the northern edge of the stage. You can see he's also carrying some sort of sidearm. What do we think that is?
Probably a Glock 19. It's definitely some sort of Glock. I don't know if it's the 9mm or 40 or what they're carrying right now.
So he's got a tactical helmet on with some sort of microphone and headphones. So he's in comms with somebody, which leads to a discussion about comms. So as we went through the TikTok here, it looks like as much as a half hour prior, Crooks was identified as a suspicious person, hanging around the magnetometer, acting weird. Another Butler Township police officer reported that he saw him scoping out the building he later was on top of with a rangefinder. That's pretty weird. And Butler Township claims that they relayed to the command post. We'll talk about the makeup of the command post in a second here. At least 10 minutes prior to the shots being fired, that there was a suspicious person wandering around, and several minutes prior, about the time that the Greg, the red-haired guy, claimed that they had pointed him out on top of the building, Butler Township police say they relayed that information to the command post. Now, break. The command post, and this is what you and I can relate to, having done multi-unit, either bilateral ops or real-world ops, contingency, or in your case, war ops. So the communications lash up is the difference between success and failure, right? So in this case, the lead agency is the Secret Service. I've heard them described recently by a former Secret Service agent as the conductor of the orchestra at these things. And they very much, because of manpower and just because of the practical realities of these events, have to work with the locals. That means state troopers and local law enforcement. The question is, if the lowest node in the chain of command is flagging the threat, what happened that former President Trump wasn't ushered off the stage minutes before the shots rang out?
The timeline you're mentioning, that there were some suspicious reports 30 minutes out, 10 minutes out, and then, just a minute or two before, from that guy, Greg, that was interviewed, and other people there pointing out this dude on the roof. I mean, that's pretty bad. That's somebody, certainly in 30 or 10 minutes beforehand, there should have been some sort of law enforcement response, I would think. I mean, something went wrong there.
There has been a lot of criticism about the DEI, let's just call it, makeup of the Secret Service agents around Trump in this incident. So the analog for me is, this is just like female integration across the military. In your case, special ops, special forces. In my case, carrier aviation. The question is, in the course of creating a more diversified Secret Service agent force, were standards lowered? And what is the standard, right? That's the same question we ask when we're talking about buds, we're talking about Ranger School, we're talking about flight school, carrier qualifications. What is the standard? In the course of carrying out the diversity piece, was it lowered?
I don't even know what DEI means. I mean, before that, it was CRT, and there's all these like weird things. I don't know what the hell any of that really means. But yeah, different federal agencies and the military have put a focus in some ways on diversity and reaching out to different demographics. And I mean, okay, so the Secret Service hires women. So what? Like, why am I supposed to be excited about this? Okay, the girl, had trouble getting her weapon back into her holster. Are we also in tandem going to have a conversation about the many, many male Secret Service agents who have utterly fucked up and caused international incidents? I mean, that's a thing, and you can't really blame that on DEI, right? So, I mean, if standards are lowered, that's a real problem that needs to be addressed and fixed. I don't know that that's the case. But I don't know, these female agents, they were out there acting as human shields, not me. So, I mean, I'll give some credit where it's due, I think that with a lot of people who are making criticisms, it's more about aesthetics than anything for them, that they want these like big jacked white guys with tattoos and look like badasses off of the recruiting commercial. But I mean, that's not what the future of our force is going to look like. I mean, it's going to have guys who are 5 foot tall, Mexican Americans, women, all sorts of different people are going to be in the force and already are.
For my own part, I've been smoked on enough PRTs by people whose physical appearance I judged at the starting line
Yeah, true.
to not do that. And again, to my eye, it looks like they were executing their duties as assigned. We'll find out along the way where the missteps may or may not have occurred. So let's give a little historical context to assassinations and assassination attempts in American history. So 4 presidents have been assassinated: Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, and John F. Kennedy. Now, besides former President Trump, 2 have been wounded: Theodore Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan. And we've talked a few times in this episode about the Reagan assassination attempt. It's worth noting that when he got shoved into the car, they were first going to the White House. And by he, I mean President Reagan. They were going to the White House, which was only a few blocks away from the Hilton there in Northwest DC. The agent was body checking him. And the president was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Sir, I'm checking you to see if you got hit." And in fact, he had been hit under the armpit. And so they redirected the car from going to the White House to going to the hospital, which in fact saved President Reagan's life.
For like 45 years, the Secret Service has not had one of these happen. So, I mean, they are doing their job. But yeah, again, this is still a failure that needs to be addressed. No doubt about it.
Roger that. And we've commented about, in spite of the fact that he may have been exposed to, another shooter in the event this had been a multiple shooter situation, the gesture was pretty kick-ass. And the previous kick-ass gesture was Theodore Roosevelt. He was shot at point-blank range by a bullet fired by a guy named John Schrank. The guy used a .38 caliber Colt pistol, and the bullet was stopped by 50 pages of his speech folded up and his glass case in his breast pocket. He was still bleeding, but it wasn't a mortal wound because of that stuff in his pocket. So because Teddy Roosevelt was a war vet, Rough Riders, tough guy, man's man, he was like, "Okay, I'm not coughing blood, so it's not a serious wound." So he actually continued his speech for another 84 minutes after having been shot. So the other thing that's in the world of irony, that assassination attempt occurred in Milwaukee, which is, as we're having this conversation, the site of the RNC going on right now. So there you go. There have been 37 assassination attempts on presidents and presidential candidates in American history, including 2 others on then President Trump in September and November of 2017. So again, just for some context, it's kind of like we've always been like capable of this, right? So just this isn't a novelty necessarily. As shocking as it is, this is sort of something that's been in the American landscape for a long time. And as we talk about all of those, the question is there any common thread with these assailants? And the answer to that is not really, except they're willing to kill another human being. But otherwise, it's, former actors, business owners, Lee Harvey Oswald,
Right.
they're all kind of unique in their profiles, but there's not really a common thread that we can sort of use to maybe prevent this in the future. And that's obviously a big problem for law enforcement.
Yeah. And with this shooter, I mean, there's always a rush whenever there's a shooting, a mass shooting, something that catches the public's attention, to uncover what that guy's ideology was so we can place political blame on this side or that side. It's really kind of silly the way we rush to do that. But sometimes these shooters are just mentally ill, and they don't represent any cohesive political ideology that you or I would be able to recognize. And I don't know if that's going to turn out to be the case here or not, but I mean, to your point, like, how do you protect against crazy? It's not so easy.
Well, this is the challenge of a free and open society, right?
Yeah.
people have rights. You're allowed to do weird things. We have Second Amendment rights. There's no crime for being a member of a gun club. It's not illegal to wear camo to school every day,
Right.
or play video games that are violent. Any one of those elements by themselves is not enough to arrest someone,
Right.
and take preemptive action. And that's always the Monday morning quarterbacking of these events. It's like, well, we should have known. And this is true with school shootings, any mass
Domestic
casualty
terrorism.
things. Yes. Apparently, President Biden did call the widow of Corey Comparator, and I'm hearing that she refused to take the call because her husband would not have wanted her to. And that just is what it is. He was a very ardent Trump supporter. And apparently, former President Trump did not attempt to reach out to the family at this point, at the point that we're having this conversation. In terms of what else is going to be done, there are other candidates like RFK Jr. Obviously, the Kennedy name is synonymous with assassination. So are they going to plus up his Secret Service detail? You saw night one of the convention in Milwaukee, the RNC, that when President Trump showed up, he was literally lined elbow to elbow with Secret Service protection.
Yes.
It's a tough job. That's the other thing to remember as we're talking about the makeup of the Secret Service. That is not an easy gig.
Yeah.
It's life as a gypsy, always on the road. And you can imagine, in terms of the entropy right now, the makeup of each team, the addition. So if you thought you were going on vacation to the Outer Banks this week, guess what? All leave is canceled. Everybody muster on station, and we're going to, reconfigure all of these teams in a hurry. Before we criticize, we need to be mindful of what it takes to do that job. So, Jack, we'll look to turn to you in the future for your expertise. Again, hope I see you in real life before too long.
Absolutely, man. Stay in touch.
Okay. That'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything going forward. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.